What is up, NFC West football fans, and welcome into another edition of the NFC West Roundtable powered by BetUS. Missed all of you last week. Good to be back with you. Hope everybody had a very happy new year. Tonight, we're going to recap week 18, the final week of the regular season. It's done. It's over. We now transition into one-and-done ball. Playoff football, crazy that we're at this time of year. But tonight we're going to talk about week 18. We're going to talk about the Rams, what they have coming up here in the playoffs. So a lot to get to tonight on the week 18 recap episode of the NFC West Roundtable. Without further ado, let's bring in the fellas. Let's bring in our champion, Jake. Let's bring in Brandon. Let's bring in Mike. We have no Jesse this evening. He could not be with us tonight, but we will get to the Niners at some point in the show. Before we dive into it, fellas, let's go ahead and take a quick peek over at BetUS as to what the line is for Monday Night Football on Super Wild Card Weekend, where the LA Rams will be representing the NFC West. Now, you would think, right? You got the 14-3 Vikings playing a Rams team where we didn't know what the future was going to hold just a few weeks ago. So you might think that that line might reflect that. You might be wrong. Minnesota Vikings right now, fellas, a 1-point favorite against the LA Rams in the wild card round. Now, this might have something to do with the fact that the Minnesota Vikings looked as pedestrian as it comes. Just this past week against the Detroit Lions, the Rams were getting hot at the right time. Who knows? But right now, on the road, the Vikings are only a 1-point favorite. You can get in on that line and all of the lines over on BetUS right now using the promo code YouTube150, and that'll get you a 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next two after that. Just found that a bit interesting because it felt like the Vikings had all the momentum. Now all of a sudden it feels like the Vikings have had the momentum kind of suffocated out of them. We will talk a lot about that game in our preview episode coming your way later in the week. But right now, fellas, let's talk about what we saw in week 18. Let's start with those LA Rams. Didn't play their starters, which I kind of found to be, I don't know. I'm interested to get your guys' perspective on this, but when I initially heard the Rams weren't going to play their starters, it was interesting to me because of the ability to change their seating if they would have won the game. They could have had a different seating, a different matchup, but they went with Jimmy Garoppolo. They play the Seattle Seahawks, and I'll tell you, despite the fact that game didn't have much on the line, that was one of the more entertaining games of the afternoon. And I went back as I'm watching this game, fellas. I go back to a show we had a while ago where someone had said that Jimmy G was like the third best quarterback in this division or whatever. And I'm watching this game and I'm like, you know what? Jimmy G's kind of playing all right for the first time I've watched him in quite some time here. But the Seattle Seahawks do get it done in a very entertaining game, 30-25. Geno Smith had a nice end to his season. What was it, Brandon? A $6 million bonus he wound up accumulating with all that he wound up doing in that game. So, Mike, I'll start with you here. Watch that game, the tail end of the season or the regular season, rather, for those two teams. Your takeaway from what you saw between the Rams and the Seahawks.
You know, I didn't watch the game. I'm sorry. I'm going to make this short and sweet. Well, the reason why is because this game, it was the same kind of time slot, or at least if it wasn't, I think it was the same time, right? It was around the 2 o'clock. Yeah, that's what I was watching, Cardinals versus 49ers. So although I was peeking in on that game, because obviously when you're doing a live play-by-play, you want to kind of see what happens within the division. And although we knew the Rams were going to win it by that time, you still want to kind of know. But I didn't actually watch the game per se, so don't really have too much to say. I apologize.
No worries about it. I think week 18, I think a lot of these games were corner TV games. Fellas, I can't even lie. Bills, Patriots, I had like my left eye on that and the right eye primarily on Red Zone in week 18. Brandon, let's go to you here because I'm interested to get your thoughts on a couple of things. One, we'll start with the game itself. Overall, thoughts on how the Seahawks were able to end the season on, somewhat of a positive note, despite missing the playoffs, still 10 wins, and they get the W against the Rams.
Yeah, I think you overall on the big picture side of this, it's a successful year. You got a first-time head coach, youngest head coach in the NFL, got to 10 wins in his first season. That's the best in Seahawks history for a first-time head coach. And that may not be seeming like anything, but we've had Chuck Knox in here prior in the 80s, a guy that looked great track record through the 70s. You had Mike Holmgren, who'd won with the Packers. You had Coach Carroll come in here, a guy with the history there with USC. These were guys who knew what they were doing, and yet they couldn't get up to where he's gotten from a win total, which I think beyond what we talk about on a micro level, this is the big picture stuff that's the most important for this franchise and the stuff you carry away from this season. With that said,
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Brandon.
No, you're good. With that said, this is a case where the Rams were primarily playing backups across the board, and they hung with you all the way up into the fourth quarter with about 3:27 to go. I think they had the lead. And this is an important point because there's many Hawk fans that are driven to think that because we've gotten to 10 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins, well, next year means 12 wins. Well, next year means 13 wins. Well, next year means you're becoming elite. And I find myself drawn away from it saying this is not necessarily an indication of that. When Jimmy Garoppolo's cutting through your defense, when he's hanging 324 on you, I'm sure both sides weren't necessarily playing at their best because there was nothing to really play for. But with that said, it stands out to me where we were still mainly playing our starters. We were down 3 cornerbacks, which is part of what helped Jimmy have the day that he was able to have. We were playing a pretty simplified defense once we lost those corners on the outside. But it's one where you feel good about it, but at the same time you go, you're not taking a huge stroke away from it. And again, the real big picture thing here is how do we get to contending? How do we get to being elite? Because it's been 10 years, 10 long years of not being elite, barely being a playoff team when we are good.
So obviously the future's set on next year. I want to talk about that real quick. Mike McDonald, in his presser at the end of the year, he says Geno Smith is the best for this team currently. No one has been more, I don't know if out on a limb and saying defending Geno Smith would be the right word, but no one has really been in Geno Smith's corner more than you. I mean, you have done the most in terms of letting people know that the issues with the Seattle Seahawks are far beyond the quarterback position, and you've done a lot in terms of, kind of showcasing that Geno Smith deserves some respect in this league, especially compared to the respect he currently gives. When you hear Mike McDonald say that, and then you talk about trying to become elite, these fans thinking that you're going to gain another win or two next year and get into that, 12-win category where all the elite teams are, is Geno Smith part of that, in your opinion, getting to that next step?
Yeah, if you're making that choice, it's a crossroads right here, or a fork in the road, I guess is the better way to describe it, where the team's got to decide if they truly believe that they are elite. And if they are, then you're going with Geno probably into next year. If you're not, then it really starts to be a situation that's removed of how good or bad Geno is. There's other factors at play that start to override it. The cost on a new contract, his age, the fact that it's going to take you maybe a year or two to get to being a contender. And if that's the case, do you want to spend on that kind of money for a 35, 36-year-old quarterback? So there's these factors that supersede where he is as a player. And as we started out this in the weekly roundup, I started out saying this to not overstate it. Not that he's one of the best, that he's up there in an Allen or Lamar stage. I said he's a top 10 quarterback and how he's going to play. And I think that that's held true throughout this season. And he's done it, by the way, with an offensive line that was absolutely atrocious, with an offensive scheme that was absolutely atrocious. You just fired your OC, and he was able to supersede that and overcome that. And that's a part where I still stand on my initial outlook on it. I still believe that. But again, that doesn't mean that I'm just marrying this guy now all the way into the next couple of years, because it's about becoming a contender, not about having favorites. It's about what does that take to get there, and is the timing right? And if you're going to spend all that money, you better be real sure. And this team has been, problem here, Z-Bot, is in this 10 years, those 10 years, every year you make the same mistake in the offseason. You think organizationally, and you're very open in saying it, that you are a contender, that now is the time. Next year we're ready. No, okay, not this year. Now's the time. Now we're ready. Okay, not quite yet. All right, now's the time. Now, all right, 10 straight years this has been the case of this front office. And so I've been leaning a little bit more into saying, when we come back to this Geno discussion, of going, I feel like we got to maybe pull a step back to go 2 steps forward here. And if that's the case, this goes to a whole different discussion when it comes to Geno on that. But I think that they misidentified themselves improperly at times, and thinking they're a contender or they're not. You rob from tomorrow to pay for today when you do that at times, and that can lead to issues down the road.
Off the beaten path a little bit here, but I'm interested in your thoughts on this. It just came out that the Chicago Bears are going to be interviewing, of course, why am I blanking on that?
Carroll.
Yeah, thank you. Jeez, what am I doing here? They're going to be interviewing Carroll. So you just get through your first year here with Mike McDonald after moving on from Carroll, and now you have teams that are a ton of teams after Black Monday here, a ton of teams moving off of their coaches, and you hear all these names come out. And I had always gone back to the idea of, why is Pete Carroll's name not being brought up when Belichick's, of course, was being thrown out there as much as he was before taking the North Carolina job? Just real quick, your thoughts on Pete Carroll potentially coming back into the league, and how you would feel if you were a team, if you were rooting for a team that was assessing him and wanting to bring him in and maybe lead them into a category in which you're trying to get your Seahawks into, and that's elite.
You're going to get me flamed by Hawk fans for this one because some of them don't like my take on this. Coach Carroll is a phenomenal coach, and the energy's there to still get it done. He's not over the hill as far as too old to do it, but his viewpoint of how to get it done is old and dusty. And that's the main issue at hand here, is that his approach first when it comes to the defense is very simplified and just letting them play. And it removes all of the schematic advantages you build into any kind of coach who's trying to play any kind of chess match. He's checkers at all times. Other coaches are playing chess match. You're putting your players behind the 8 ball when you set that stage up. You've got the elite athletes across the board to get it done. Maybe you could kind of pull it off. I still maintain if the Legion of Boom talent was here today, 10 years forward here today in their prime, it would not be at the same dominant level. The NFL has changed, and Carroll has not adapted and changed with it, specifically with his defense. We turned over the LOB from a talent standpoint many different times to try to find that magical mix again. The thing that was the common denominator is he was not changing his defense. You're going to get a front four. You're going to get a lot of guys dropping back into coverage. What you see is what you get pre to post snap as far as the coverages are concerned. And I'm talking at a league worst level here, Z-Bot. I'm not talking like, well, kind of 20s, 32nd. By a large range. Every year you can count on that. You can't give offenses that kind of schematic advantage and expect that you're going to be able to get it, or your players will overcome that. Let me say it that way. Then you get over to the offensive side, and he wants all of his fingers in all the pies. So he wants to be a guy that also is controlling a lot of what's happening on the offensive side of the ball, to the point that when Brian Schottenheimer got hired, he had to inherit 70% of the playbook that he walked into there with the Seahawks. He walks in, hey, coach, I'm ready. Okay, you ready? I'm ready. Hey, yeah, got my playbook. Carroll took the playbook, went whoosh, handed the other playbook they had on top of it, handed it to him and said, here you go. And then those guys end up having a mutual parting of ways because they couldn't see eye to eye. Surprise over a couple-year period in a Rams playoff game where it was a just complete crap show where he's trying to override. It wasn't working. So it's kind of, when you come to Carroll, he can motivate still. He can energize a locker room. His energy is unmatched. There are good stuff that he brings, but he's got to find a way to find that adjustment to his coaching game and that next evolution, if it can exist at this late of an hour. And I remain a little reticent to believe that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I feel like I definitely understand the sentiment. That's why I was so shocked with North Carolina hiring Bill Belichick, because you go to a younger demographic as that continues to get older. That's why it made no sense to me. But with Pete Carroll, why I never understood why his name wasn't being thrown out there was because he never seemed his age, and it just feels like he still kind of has that mentality. But to your point, it feels like the name of the game now is young, offensive-minded coach, and you're going to be seeing that throughout this hiring process here. You're already seeing some of the top names be in that category. Jake, let's switch it over to you here. Lost, but this game was kind of mailed in from the start, and that's where I want to start here. Your initial thought on Sean McVay saying, we're fine with whoever we play here. We're trotting Jimmy Garoppolo and the backups out there, and whatever happens, happens. What was your initial thought when you heard that?
I loved it. And I know a lot of Rams fans wanted them to go after the 3 seed. I know some of them didn't want them to win the game because they wanted to play the Lions, which I never assumed anything. I never assumed that the Lions would win or lose. I had the Lions losing. That did not happen. But I actually look at all the teams, and I really kind of came away like, I don't know if I want to play the Commanders. I mean, they bring everything to the table that the Rams struggle against. And, I just think Jaden Daniels would just be an absolute nightmare in the first round. If you're talking about any sort of semblance of, kind of a slow start because you sat your starters, going up against Jaden Daniels would not be great. So I don't want to overlook the Vikings. I really am not. But I definitely was not as quick as to say the Commanders are the easy team. Let's go get them, like everyone else was saying, just like I wasn't with the Packers either. I don't think there's an easy team in the NFC playoffs. I think every single team that is in the playoffs in the NFC could go to the Super Bowl. They all have, some sort of reason why they could. I'm not overlooking Tampa, any of that. But I think the real thing about playing your starters in this game, because they did play a few, and I want to give credit to Seattle in that regard. I wasn't ignorant to the fact Jared Verse is out there. Maybe he's not playing at the level we've seen Jared Verse play at, but Jared Verse was out there for a little bit. Braden Fisk is out there for a little bit. Kobe Turner's out there. They had a Kello on those third downs. Kobe Durant, who's been the best corner on this team, for most of the season, who hasn't really played, he was out there. Jalen McCullough, he plays a lot of snaps. He was starting, and so was Cam Kinchins. They had a lot of starters. I mean, Omar Spates as well. They sat a lot of guys. And the thing is, it was the combination where you play, say, an Emmanuel Forbes at the same time you're playing, somebody in the secondary that's not used to playing with one another. And I think that's what led to some of those, broken coverages, if you will, and some of those touchdowns. But I was really impressed with the way the defense played. I thought you saw great things from, as I just said, Forbes, just his ability to mirror. That's all I was looking for. How good is this guy going to be long term? I have no idea. But can he do anything? Well, going up against DK Metcalf, you can see he at least has something to develop this offseason and down the road. But then on the offensive side, guys, I mean, getting Jordan Whittington those reps, I think Whittington should be playing over Cooper Kupp. I said it. I think Whittington's a better receiver at this point in Cooper Kupp's career. Based on what I've seen, Whittington is better. He was leading the league in separation when he actually had the amount of snaps to qualify. If you put him, let's say you gave him at least 30 minimum targets. I think he's at 28. He was right there on one of those charts with CD Lamb. And that's kind of what I see with him. Just that, yards after the catch ability, great route runner, creates separation. He's also already one of the best run blockers in the NFL at his position. And so I like getting him involved. I like getting Garoppolo reps because he hadn't played since week 18 emergency snaps last year. Okay, so he hasn't played all year. He didn't play in the preseason. So I like getting the backup ready to go in case, God forbid, Stafford goes down in the postseason. I liked having Mike LaFleur call plays. I think that was great. Kind of just gave him a little fresh, take on the offense. And to be honest with you, I think there are some things that he implemented that Sean McVay should look at implementing in the playoffs. I like that Ronnie Rivers got going. But if anybody's complaining about them sitting starters, we saw Blake Corum go down. He's out for the year. This is what we're talking about. Blake Corum, Zay Flowers might not play week 1, or in the wild card. We saw guys go down, and I'm just kind of tired of hearing this whole, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, the Vikings played their starters because they were trying to win the damn number 1 seed. You can't complain about the result. They had every reason to play them. The Rams had a different operation. Not everything is one size fits all. And I think that's an important distinction here. A lot of these coaches coach differently. I mean, I was just having this conversation yesterday with Whitworth, and, a lot of teams do things differently. And he was talking about how in 2017, the Rams rested their starters and it was their worst game of the year against Atlanta in the wild card. So sometimes there is truth to that, but it's not every time. And looking back at Sean McVay's rookie year, and how that affected them, his rookie year going up against, Dan Quinn, who had just coached in the Super Bowl. I just don't think that is going to give you the best results. So I think you just kind of take it as it is. And I'll tell you guys right now, Stafford needed time off. This isn't negotiable. Stafford has not looked good the last 3 weeks. I'm just being honest here. And I think it's because he was banged up. And I've said that. There's a chance I'm wrong. There's a chance maybe he's hitting this rapid regression. I don't buy it, but there's a possibility. There's a possibility he goes out there, guys, and absolutely stinks up the joint against the Vikings, and the Rams go home early, and everyone's sitting there like, oh, well, that was new. But I'll tell you right now, I don't think any of that's going to happen, but if they played him in Week 18 and he got hurt, they have no chance of going to the Super Bowl. They have a chance with Stafford. It's that simple.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jake, because that's where I wanted to go. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this because as I joked around with you, of course, the Rams had to save the offensive explosion for my Buffalo Bills, and that explosion was never able to pop off again afterwards. 44 points against the Bills. Yeah. Matt Stafford with over 300 yards. They could not be stopped, and he looked incredible. After that, 12 points against the Niners, 19 points against the Jets, 13 points against the Cardinals. In all 3 of those games, Matt Stafford does not crack 200 yards. Now you have Jimmy Garoppolo come in against the Seahawks team, as you mentioned, playing the majority of their starters, and he hasn't played since Week 18 of last year. And he goes for well over 300 yards, 25 points, the most points they've scored in a month here since that Bills game. And they're a play away, potentially, if that ball is thrown a little bit higher, from getting into the 30s and winning that game. Where are you right now after watching that? Because I've had some Rams fans kind of tell me, well, McVay, he's not showing his hand prior to the playoffs. He thinks he can win these without doing so. And I'm thinking to myself, you don't do that when you have a 1-game margin between getting in and not getting in. So you watch this on Sunday, Jay, compared to what the last month was. Is there a level of concern, in your opinion, for Stafford and this offense going against Minnesota on Monday?
I have no concern, but this isn't a homer take like you might think. They are winning unconventional football. This is an unconventional playoff team. If they go to the Super Bowl this year, it would be only the second time. They'd be the second time. It's only happened once, guys, where a team had a negative point differential and went to the Super Bowl and won. And that was the Giants in 2011. So it can happen, but it's only happened once. Although I've said this team is very unconventional because last year, 3-6 to 10-7. This year, 1-4 to 10-7. They're the only team to do that, to be 3 games below 500 going into the bye week, back-to-back seasons, and turn it into a playoff. But I just feel like they are so used to playing their style of offense. They've adapted, while I think a lot of the Rams fans haven't. Because when you think about when the Rams are good, regardless if you're talking about Rams fans, 49er fans, Seahawks fans, or Cardinals fans, you think about the greatest show on turf. You think about Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp in 2017-18, Brandon Cooks, Sammy Watkins. You think about that Super Bowl team, Cooper Kupp Triple Crown, Odell Beckham Jr., high-octane passing attack. That's what you think about. But the reality is the Rams haven't been that really all year. Okay, they really haven't been this high-octane passing attack. I'm sorry, Z-Bot. I have no idea where that went, where that came from. That's not who the Rams are. I mean, maybe they can, emulate that in the postseason, and I wouldn't put it past them. I think they have an opportunity based on the fact, the Vikings play predominantly that too high safety look, and they leave the middle of the field as open as anybody in the league. I think the Rams are going to hit them over the head with that. But is that high octane? Are they throwing bombs down the field? No, I think they're going to win with yards after the catch ability, but they're going to be a team. They're not a 5 to 7 play drive scoring team. They're a 15-play drive, and they might even kick a field goal. That's 22 yards type of team. And that's how they've been winning games. And, everybody focused on the defense. Like, Rams fans were so pissed at the defense, they didn't even celebrate enough about winning against who I think is going to win the Super Bowl in the Buffalo Bills. I thought that win was... that was the most defining win of the year, in my opinion. I mean, when they did that, it allowed them to sit their starters in this one. It allowed them to have a little bit of cushion. If they don't win that game like I thought they were going to lose, this Week 18 game, Brando, I'm right. This is for the division, like I called. So that's the thing, is a lot of things changed when they won that game. It gave them some wiggle room. And they weren't supposed to win that game, and they weren't supposed to do what they did. And that was the first time we had really seen a fully healthy Rams offense. And now people are wondering, where did this offense go? I'll say this. The last 3 games with Stafford, I was at the Jets game. I watched the 49ers game like you guys on primetime, and the Cardinals game. Those 2 games, to be fair, were in the elements. Okay? You could tell Stafford and Purdy could barely grip the football in that rainy Thursday night game. Also, the quality of Thursday night games down the stretch suck. So we need to get rid of Thursday night games entirely. But anyway, I don't want to say that because I mean nothing against Witt. Obviously, they do a great job on Amazon Prime. But the idea of playing on a short week is really kind of damning at the end of the year. Anyway, my point is that, you got 2 element games. The cold game against the Jets, that was the coldest game of McVay's career, and I believe that was the coldest game Stafford's ever played. Okay, the wind chill was, I think, 2 degrees. It was insane. So then you have the Cardinals game, and the Cardinals have been playing this underrated defense that no one wants to give them credit for because they see Kyler Murray and they see Marvin Harrison Jr., and they see how that team can be explosive. But that defense, what they're doing without a legitimate pass rusher that can close out games has been really impressive. So they played a tough defense in Arizona that was pissed off and wanted to beat the Rams and keep them out of the playoffs. But the thing I have here is that the Rams have shown more often than not that they are this kind of grinded out style, unconventional offense, not, this high octane offense. But they also haven't been healthy very often this year. And I do think there is a chance that we do see that Rams offense that we saw against the Bills because of the health. I'm just not saying to buy that. I'm saying there's a chance, but let that be a chance. Expect it's going to be ugly. Expect the defense is going to continue to play at their level. They're going to get pressure. The secondary is going to continue to play at their level, and they're going to hold teams in the red zone and give up a lot of yards. Expect that, and expect that they're going to run the ball with Kyren Williams. But to expect the Rams to drop 44 on a team and do what they did against the Bills, which, by the way, was a snowball effect from the blocked punt, which you can't just bank on in every game, that would be stupid to expect that. So do the Rams have the potential? Yes, they've already done it. But what I think the Rams, the best way they can win this is by playing the style of football they played the last 3 weeks, improving the offense a little bit. And if this defense continues playing at that level, defense wins championships, and they're going to be hard out.
And I think go ahead, Brandon.
Point to quick, just a smoking gun that's not been talked about in regards to this, and as far as Rams fans looking at this situation, because it's a point I've made throughout the show this year, which is that especially when the offensive line ain't rolling right, your quarterback's not going to be able to get a lot done. And I've talked a lot about Geno being under duress with this, but the Rams this year have the 30th best pass protecting unit in football, according to PFF. The year that they went and won the Super Bowl, number one. So it's a bit of, again, another representation of here's an example of what happens. And you have Ram fans going, oh no, Stafford's lost it. Doesn't have his fastball anymore. Well, is it that, or is it this other thing? Especially consider that they stay committed to the running game, but the running game doesn't consistently grind out always a lot of yards. They'll stay and they'll run 23 times and have a 79-yard day, but it's not that they're able to just lean on that. And I think that that's a part that's maybe getting lost here as far as the Stafford evaluation goes.
Yeah, it also feels like for Monday night, offense be damned. We just got the blueprint from the Lions. If you can get pressure on Sam Darnold, I mean, you are going to have a day. They could not do anything. So to your point earlier, Jake, if this defense can live up to the billing I think it's been creating for itself all year, this young, hungry defense. The Lions were a team that nobody expected to do anything defensively the other day. Everybody thought that was the highest over-under, I think, in the last 2 years. Didn't come close. I mean, Minnesota couldn't do anything. So it just feels like if Stafford has a decent day, they're going to have a chance in this one. Would you not agree?
No, I do agree. And I think a lot of what Brandon said is accurate. I also think just and going back to that Cardinals game, you got the 2 element games, right? And I give him a little bit of a pass in those because the freezing cold and, the pouring rain. But then you're in the dome and people are like, all right, well, why does he look bad there? Their record without Rob Havenstein is abysmal. And he was out. And for whatever reason, they continue to trot Joseph Noteboom when he's out at right tackle. Warren McClendon Jr., Brandon, you saw on the right side, that he's good. He's not great. He's not, I don't want him starting, but he's their best option at right tackle if Havenstein can't go. And in every game Havenstein hasn't been able to go, it's been Noteboom, and it's really been a problem. And Stafford, the thing people will look at and they'll talk about, because Brandon, you're absolutely right. This offensive line has struggled. They also have had 11 different, offensive linemen start this year. But they have struggled. The thing that people do that gets them into trouble and why they're starting to believe Stafford's falling off a cliff, which I don't. I just think he's missing some throws and I know he's banged up. We saw it against the 49ers. But there's truth to what you're saying. And people get themselves into a predicament when they look at the sacks. They just look at the sacks and they say, well, Stafford hasn't been sacked in 4 weeks. And if you don't watch the games, Stafford is like Tarzan swinging on a vine in, the pocket. I don't even know how he doesn't get sacked. He's had to make some crazy plays this year. He's had to make it since he became a Ram, even when they had a great offensive line. But now, he doesn't have Hall of Famer Andrew Whitworth, right? And most of the guys have been out. They have a good offensive line when they're healthy, but they've only been fully healthy for 2.5 games this year. So that's the thing that, obviously having that time off, I think even with the Monday night game, the way Havenstein has been kind of up and down. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I'm annoyed that we have Monday night playoff games. But at the same time, I think that might be beneficial for the Rams because of Havenstein. I'm telling you, 79 on this offensive line is a bigger X factor than anybody realizes.
And we'll have a ton to talk about when it comes to those Rams on our preview episode. I'm looking forward to it because that game's great. And I agree with you, Jake. The one spot I did not want the Bills to get was that Monday night. I hate it. I don't know why they do it. I think it's ridiculous. But at least for those who don't have a stake in the game, that's one hell of a game to put on Monday night. I'm very much looking forward to it.
If they gave a 2 seed, a Monday night game,
I know.
Man, fisticuffs. Fisticuffs.
I agree with you. I mean, that was the craziness of the other night, too. You go from winning that game and getting the 1 seed to then having to get backed into a Monday night game on the road in LA. I mean, man, it's just crazy.
Awful, man.
Can't wait to talk about it on the preview episode. Let's switch gears to the other game within the division this past weekend. Let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals getting it done in dominant fashion in Week 18, 47-24 over the San Francisco 49ers. Before anything here, Mike, look, I know this didn't go the way you wanted it to. It seemed like earlier in the year, the Cardinals were going to be better than expectations. And I'm not entirely sure what those expectations were after last year, but it looked like it might be better than what it finished. But with that said, you still double up your win total from last year. So my question to you is, I know not making the playoffs, you can never consider it a great season, but based on what you saw last year, now you can reflect on what you saw this year, doubling up the win total. Did it feel like a win in some capacity this season?
First things first, I want to make sure I would say real quick, congratulations, Jake and the Rams. I didn't get a chance to formally applaud you. Yeah, congratulations on the NFC West. But yeah, so outside the season, now that we're here in this very moment, you can take a step back and say, okay, let's reassess it. I'm not gonna lie to you, during the season, there was a lot of emotions, a lot of up and downs. The Cardinals were 6-4 at one point, kind of in the driver's seat of the NFC West, and you kind of start seeing it, falter, and then the Cardinals not winning, and then they go 2-5, and after the bye week, then obviously frustrations start to settle. But once you're sitting here outside the season, and I'm excited for this wild card football. Obviously, I don't have a lot of skin in the game, but I love football in general, so I'm really excited to see these games coming up. But when it comes down to it, yeah, I mean, the Cardinals did double their win amount. So if there's something that you want to take away in terms of being happy about what the Cardinals did, they doubled it, man. They went from 4 wins to 4 wins, and then 8 wins for the Cardinals. So overall, it was successful, but a very, very frustrating successful, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But overall, man, I think we're all pretty excited to see what happens in 2025. And we're slated to have upwards of about $80 million to spend here in free agency. Not most likely, we're not going to be spending that much, but we're going to have a lot of money to spend. 5 draft picks. I think right now we're slating at the 16th overall spot. So there's a lot of excitement amongst the Cardinal fans now that the dust has settled a little bit. Of course, we heard Jonathan Gannon come out and say that K1's going to be the quarterback in 2025. He's got no doubt in his mind that he's going to be the guy. So although I don't think anybody believed that he wasn't going to be, now that we're out here, I think we kind of take a glance back and see, yeah, it's a good season, right? But talking about this game here for 49ers versus Cardinals, I think we're really excited that we actually swept the 49ers. We haven't done that in a very, very long time. And I know 49er fans, if you guys are in the chat, we've always been known as the little brothers. So let us have this, man. Let us have this. This game, just in a nutshell, they didn't play a lot of their starters. You saw Kittle here and there. They had a couple defensive starters here and there, but it was just the Josh Dobbs versus Kyler Murray show. And that was kind of the big storyline, or at least for a lot of my subscribers, because let's call it like it is, man. Week 18, you're kind of in that sense, and you want to see a win, but you also want the season to freaking end, and you want to know what your draft pick is. So that was kind of the big storyline heading into Week 18. But overall, I mean, this is probably the best case scenario when it comes down to seeing back-to-back weeks with the offense looking good, right? And let me, I guess, rephrase that, because I know you're going to say, oh, they only put 9 points up on the Rams, but that 9 points, seeing the offense function the way that it did, was actually pretty good, because a lot of Kyler Murray's been dink and dunk, a lot of not taking shots deep downfield, and you actually saw Kyler Murray command the offense and actually looked good here versus the Rams. Now, yes, it only equated to 9 points, but building off of that, we had a team versus the 49ers, and we actually played them very, very tough. Now, of course, it was a little bit inflated with that big bomb 40-plus yard run by Tony Jones Jr., which he probably shouldn't have scored. But at the end of the day, it's really nice to absolutely blow the 49ers out. But yeah, it was a good game. It was entertaining. You saw Kyler Murray do a lot of good things. This was his best game in terms of 4 touchdowns. Never in 2024 have we seen that at all. So he actually played a really good game, commanded the offense. Michael Carter did decent. That was our running back because obviously James Conner was down. Marvin Harrison Jr. got 8 touchdowns. And of course, that's a good mark for Anquan Bolden, Larry Fitzgerald. That's a wrong around that touchdown mark that Marvin hit. So although he didn't hit the 1K, I'm really excited about him. Trey McBride, obviously, hopefully we wrap him up on this coming offseason. So overall, good win for the Cardinals. I think we needed this as a fan base, and we're looking forward to 2025.
You know what's crazy? I feel like to put the insanity of this division in a nutshell, if I were to have asked Mike, with the Niners coming off of a Super Bowl appearance, if I were to ask Mike coming off of a 4-win season, would you take finishing higher in the division this year than the San Francisco 49ers? You're probably signing on the dotted line. Am I not right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's one of those things that's it's a full circle moment that, obviously the 49ers have been the top dogs for a very, very long time. And of course, injuries has plagued them, and seeing them at the bottom is very refreshing because we're not down there. And that's kind of what we have to hang our hats on, the fact that we're not the bottom of the division, but we played tough in week 18. All we can hope that something translates from these last 2 weeks of the season offensively to the remaining of the 2025 season, because that's been our Achilles heel all freaking year long. Our offense, they just have not been able to get the job done in a consistent manner. Our defense, and shout out here to Jake for giving us credit, because you're right. We don't have that X factor. We don't have that closer on the edge, right? But somehow there are some games that our defense actually helped win us games. And that's absolutely crazy to say because we don't have stars on this defense. But now with this money and more draft capital coming our way, I'm excited to see what Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon is going to do with this defense.
Kyler Murray, 4 touchdowns, a great performance. And you had mentioned that they will retain him. And it feels like it's interesting because like you had said, I don't think anybody thought they weren't, but yet it had to be said because there still was a looming thought of, well, I don't know, maybe. So I ask you, Mike, going into 2025, what do you have to see from K1 to say, I'm prepared to make this the foreseeable future, or I'm prepared to see what might be out there outside of this, because I just don't know if this is going to be the answer?
Well, believe it or not, I'm probably one of the first ones here within the fan base here that wants some sort of contingency plan, even in 2025, right? So I'm already acknowledged that 2025 for the Cardinals is going to be K1, and he's probably the best we got going for us right now. But what I would love the Cardinals to do is try to find some sort of contingency plan in terms of either A, for competition, or B, maybe a late round quarterback for the Cardinals to potentially groom it in case something, in case SHIT or shit hits the fan, right? You never really know. But with what I would like to see from Kyler Murray, obviously it's a playoff win. You got to get to the next step. We've had 1 playoff appearance with K1, and this is going to be 7 years, and we just absolutely got obliterated in that game. Now you can blame anybody under the sun, but that was one of the worst performances we've ever seen a quarterback ever have in that Rams versus Cardinals game. So what this fan base really is longing for this Cardinals organization to take that next step. And right now the next step is playoffs or bust. Believe it or not, a lot of Cardinal fans are like, okay, we'll give you 1 more year. And although it almost felt like last year, this was supposed to be the, okay, 1 more year for K1. But of course, because you finish in a positive note, right? And 8 wins is actually good. You got to celebrate the little things, right? So 8 wins is good. But now it definitely seems like it transferred now to, okay, it's all or nothing here for 2025. You got to take the Cardinals to a playoff game, and you got to win a playoff game as well. So that seems to be the next step for the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm hoping it happens. I really do. I do believe in Jonathan Gannon. I really do. It's just one of those situations that we're kind of finding ourselves in right now for Cardinal fans, because 7 years is a long time. It's a long time, but I know our organizations, we love to hang on, progress, but the next step is playoffs, man. It's playoffs and then win a playoff game too. That's what we need to see from Kyler Murray for 2026 and moving on.
Brandon, the San Francisco 49ers, they obviously win the conference last year. They take these Kansas City Chiefs to overtime. They're a play away from winning the Super Bowl. That's a high bar to set for the following year. So not hitting that, of course, is to be expected. You're not going to be able to get back to that height with ease. But finishing with 6 wins here. I don't think anybody would anticipate bringing back the majority of that roster that the Niners would finish last in this division with 6 W's, and all throughout the year for the most part, they just never looked half of what they looked like last year. As a fan of a team in this conference, or this division rather, knowing you have to face this team 2 times a year every year, your overall perception moving forward of the San Francisco 49ers in their current state?
They're a wolf trapped in a little animal trap out in the wild, where it's got one of their paws, but they still got the bite, force, the power. If you get in with reach, they can be dangerous. And I look at this team as one where I'm a little bit like where Jesse stands on it, looking at it going, don't know if it's going to get back to the high of heights. I think you could kind of see a little bit of possibly this season coming in that Super Bowl losers tend to have this perpetual, this is their eventuality the next year. It's hard to go up to the top of the mountain, fall back to the bottom, and have to climb your way back up again. They also had one of the wildest seasons as far as kind of off-field stuff, multiple players having babies die, a guy getting shot in the chest. The vibes were just off completely, but they still remain a very talented team going into the future. I do still think Shanahan, I know Lyle and all this, and he's got his fatal flaws he can never overcome, and give him a 10-point lead, he'll lose it. All that stuff is maybe true, but I still think he's a really good coach, and I think he's still very capable with this team. So they're not going anywhere as far as this is now them heading into a death spiral. I don't think that. This is still a team that could capably rally the troops here and get back to playoffs. But getting back to being a elite team in the near future here with what they have on deck, especially it sounds like they're going to probably sign Brock Purdy to that contract extension. And sadly for those Niner fans who are like, look at him, he's just a guy who'll take a discount. You can just see in his face. He's got a discount kind of face. It's like, no, that ain't the way this is going to work, buddies. Get ready for the $50 million ride. Choo choo. Woo woo. And I think that puts them in a predicament. I do think that. I think they've got a lot of injury stuff. Dre Greenlaw is going to move on this offseason, so it's a push and pull. The one saving grace for this Niner organization recently that's going to help them on this, and maybe to me gives them a little bit of a crack of daylight on this, Z-Bot, is that they have drafted pretty well here at times, especially in some of the depths of the draft recently, and finding some really good players. That Malik Mustafa is going to develop. Ricardo Green's going to develop. They're going to have some of these guys that I think are going to come along to help them in some of the losses that you're going to get, and got some of the top line guys that you're going to kind of start to lose and bleed out from.
Jake, you can probably relate to this situation more than anyone. You go to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Not good enough. We're moving off. F them picks. We're bringing in Stafford. We go and win a Super Bowl. Then after that, there's been trials and tribulations for this Rams team, including this year. You lose one of the greatest defensive players of all time. No one knows what the future is going to look like for these Rams. Stafford's getting older here. As you had mentioned earlier, Kupp's not playing quite like the offensive player of the year that we've known him to be. Then they start this year off the way that they did. Injuries littered throughout the roster, and it wasn't until very recently here that we felt that the playoffs even had a pulse for these Rams. So you have constantly come over getting to the Super Bowl and then finding ways to get over the humps that come from that. You look at it from your perspective and then try to pair that with the perspective that the Niners are currently facing. Do you think they have the ability to kind of match what the Rams have done, and that's get back to that height despite losing guys to age, despite having a different identity? How do you view the Niners?
Yeah, it's really interesting how similar they are, because Jared Goff was paid after that Super Bowl that they lost, and I was against it. I was actually for the mad scientist idea of sticking with that. Keep in mind, it requires you to actually hit on your picks. But I was kind of that mad scientist mentality of after Jared Goff, like you basically trade away Jared Goff and you draft another guy, because I believe Sean McVay is that good that I would have gone with another rookie quarterback. I wanted Stafford in 2015. Then I wanted Wentz in the draft. They went with Goff. Goff was really good in 2017-18. But towards the end of 2018, towards the end of that, everyone talks about the Chiefs game. That was week 11. After that, he was not the same quarterback. And he made some key throws in the Saints game. He made, some key throws in the Dallas game. But what a lot of people forget is they ran for 200 plus yards between Todd Gurley and CJ Anderson in the Dallas game. And then you have the Saints game, and he wasn't amazing in that game. He made a couple throws, but the defense came up with some stops and obviously, the penalty or whatever. The Patriots game, they needed him to be average, and they win that. He was not average. And what a lot of people fail to understand is I mentioned rookie contract because that is what was allowing the 49ers to do what they did. It was what was allowing the 49ers to not fall into the depths of hell for absolutely whiffing and giving up actually giving up capital to trade up and get Trey Lance. Any other team that does that and doesn't find a Brock Purdy, because that's not common to just find a guy Mr. Irrelevant. Any other team that does that is probably entering a dark era. Okay. So that's where I kind of have to give Kyle Shanahan some credit. I think I have to give John Lynch credit as well. I do think they wanted to move up. Well, I think Lynch wanted Lance. I think Shanahan wanted Mac Jones. We've talked about that. But I just feel like that quarterback contract is everything. It basically, because the cap is restrictive, regardless of what people want to say, it's a very restrictive cap. It's a hard cap. There's no soft cap like the NBA. You can't go over. There aren't bird rights, any of that, right? It's not easy. So kind of the cheat code, if you will, is finding a quarterback in the draft, getting him on a rookie deal, and then you can go out and you can maybe pay an Ndamukong Suh to join you. Maybe go out and get an Aqib Talib or a Marcus Peters, because that's what the Rams did. As soon as they paid Jared Goff, those guys weren't able to be paid. So that's the thing. As soon as they paid Stafford, like they had to move on. Jalen Ramsey's out the door, and Leonard Floyd's out the door, and Bobby Wagner, who signed a 5-year deal, only plays 1 year. He's out the door. That's what happens. So for the 49ers, I actually think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, but I would not pay Brock Purdy more than $30 million a year. And if it's going to be more than that, then I'm shopping him this offseason. I am trading him, and I'm seeing if anybody will grab that. You just went 6-11, was it? I mean, you're going to have a decent pick, easy pathway to trade up in the draft if you like a guy. And if you don't, man, like you find another dude. You know, Kirk Cousins.
That's Jesse's guy. That's Jesse's guy.
Kirk Cousins would be expensive, but you could go Kirk Cousins. Although maybe he won't. Will the Falcons
probably get him on the vet minimum, to be honest?
Will the Falcons go the route that the Broncos did? Hey, $89 million, Russ. We just don't want you to play here.
Right.
Yeah, but you take that. That remains to be seen. But if I'm Kyle Shanahan, they might.
Falcons have an out for after 1 year on the deal.
So this is how I'd play it. If you really believe in Kyle Shanahan as a 49ers organization, go out and get one of the disgruntled young quarterbacks. Trade for, I don't know if he's available, but really check and make sure J.J. McCarthy is not available with Minnesota. Check the Colts. See if Anthony Richardson is available or not. Go out and see if Zach Wilson makes sense. I mean, I'd grab two of them and have it battle it out in camp. And if I have, if I'm the 49ers and I have a great coach in Kyle Shanahan and I believe what he did with Brock Purdy was more him instead of Brock Purdy, then he should be able to do it with a first-round talent, right? So that's how I would look at that.
I think it's an excellent point you make in terms of the optimism for the Niners. When you forget the fact that Trey Lance was a Niner and they spent 3 first-round draft picks to acquire him, that pretty much is the best example I can think of a well-run organization. The question is, can they continue to overcome that with Brock Purdy here? That's one of the biggest question marks of the offseason, in my opinion here. What are the Niners going to do at quarterback? I'll end this conversation with you here, Mike, with a simple question. Who wins a playoff game first? The Arizona Cardinals or the San Francisco 49ers?
Oh, dang. You can put me in a box here. I'll say the Cardinals.
Get them,
I feel like the Cardinals are trending in the right direction. Obviously, call me a homer. That's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're going to pay Purdy. They're going to pay Brock Purdy. It's just they're stuck in a hole right now. Now, if they take the route of what Jake said, then hey, that's a lot of cojones there. But I'm gonna go with my Arizona Cardinals, man. I'm gonna say we're gonna win a playoff game before they do.
Remind them, Jake, how much cap space do you guys got to spend this offseason?
Like over 100.
Who?
Not bad. You guys do, right, Mike? You got 100 million.
80.
Well, we got about 80 something right now. Yeah, because we signed Buddha. We signed James Conner, and we're probably going to most likely sign up or at least get in front of the Trey McBride thing.
Well, you don't want 100 because you don't want your team spending like it's Black Friday shopping.
You want to be in top six. Being top six helps, though. Especially if
it does help. And that rollover, Brandon, I am going to bring it up. I brought it up. I understand 49er fans were like, yeah, we got all this rollover money. It doesn't really work that way because you paid like Deamador Lenore, you paid all these guys, and now, the prince that was promised, well, you got to pay him too, or you got to, it's shit or get off the pot. If you believe Brock Purdy's your guy, then you're going to have to pay him. And look, you could say what you will and say, no, he's going to take a pay cut or a hometown discount. He owes you nothing. That's how these players have to look at it. I mean, he has to protect himself. This is a guy, understand this. And this is why I wouldn't pay him anything more than $30 million. And even I might be going a little bit overboard with that. He has a Tommy John surgery under his belt. I don't know another quarterback that has had that. Maybe I'm ignorant. And I don't know.
Forearm this end of the season.
This, you know what? This is very similar to when the Rams paid Gurley, and there were still kind of like, okay, he had some stuff going on with the knee, and I was all for it because I'm just like, Todd Gurley's the best offensive player in the league right now outside of quarterback. I mean, he's dominant. And then unfortunately, that knee hit like just a crater, right? But this is the quarterback position. You can't really come back from that if you pay him $60 million. It is not a team-friendly deal. I mean, you're talking about being in the basement for the next 5 years, maybe even more. I don't care how good your coach is. Like, that's just how I feel. So they got to be careful. This is not as simple as, yeah, we have no choice. We got to pay him. You always have a choice. Get creative. Think outside the box. Don't do anything stupid like the Browns did, getting Deshaun Watson and giving him all that money. But, try find different ways. If it's Kirk Cousins on a veteran minimum and you draft a guy and you groom him behind Cousins, okay. If it's, going out and like my thing and going out and maybe getting a Zach Wilson or a Justin Fields or really trying to see if some of those disgruntled quarterbacks that are talented, that you believe are talented, maybe they're available. Is Trevor Lawrence available? Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of these, what you can find in roster building. And I mean, this is what it comes down to, is that there are 32 teams, 32 head coaches, 32 general managers, 32 front offices. There is at least one stupid as hell front office, GM, head coach combination. You only need one of those. And if it's the general manager that's a dumbass, well, then he might be willing to trade away some good talent. I mean, just think about how fleeced the Titans were. Okay, I actually liked John Robinson. I thought he was a fine GM. But that trade, when they trade away A.J. Brown instead of paying him, and then they drafted, I'm blanking on the guy's name.
Traylon Burks.
Burks, yes.
Yep.
That also
I hated that
Vrabel out a little bit too. That was a huge fork in the road for Vrabel too. That I think was kind of a final straw for him.
Yep.
And he had no say in that.
No.
So I feel like, I mean, this goes for the Seahawks, Brandon. We had a almost 4-hour conversation about this stuff. There are bad organizations, and roster building isn't just one through the draft. It isn't just one through free agency or college free agency or trading. All those things come together, and you just have to find creative ways. There's no, we have no choice. We have to pay him. That is bullshit. If you really believe that Kyle Shanahan is that good of an offensive mind, and Brock Purdy, who's dealing with arm issues and has a Tommy John surgery on the docket, and he's asking you for $60 freaking million a year, and you can't afford that coming off a 6-11 season. No, there's not no choice. Everybody has a choice. You absolutely have a choice. I think there's a dumb team in this league that would actually trade for Brock Purdy and pay him that money. Find that dumb team and do it. Do not pay him that money. I'm telling you that right now, just from a football fan perspective. Obviously, everybody in the NFC West, aside from the 49ers, are begging you to pay that money. But there's a reason, okay? Because it's not that we think Brock Purdy is bad. He's not chopped liver. It's that $60 million a year is due to the inflation of the league. Okay. He'd be making more than Josh Allen. Like, imagine if he doesn't even get that contract before Josh Allen gets paid. So what if Josh Allen gets paid before then? And Brock Purdy's like, well, Josh Allen's making 65, so I think I deserve 70. Like, we're just hearing 60 million. That's been the number. That could go up, right? So only pay that much money to the quarterback position when you know this is our guy. Josh Allen, I don't want him playing for another organization. Joe Burrow, I don't want you playing for any other organization. Those are the quarterbacks you pay that money. Brock Purdy is not one of those quarterbacks. Brock Purdy is like Mark Bulger. He was nice with the Rams. He had a quick decline, though. And then it kind of led into kind of a dark and dreary road. We've seen plenty of guys. Derek Anderson had some good stats. A team paid him. Carson Palmer has had... Honestly, he had a lot of production for his career, but are you looking at Carson Palmer like that guy's going to take me to the promised land? It's that simple. And I mean, no disrespect to those quarterbacks, tough position to play.
I mean, we thought that in 2015.
All right.
I
don't admit that.
If he got in the right
I think he could have. Unfortunately, he got hurt the year prior. Yeah.
Fair enough. But the point still stands. I mean, people like the story, and I've even heard Niners fans say, well, Kurt Warner... Dude, Brock Purdy is nowhere near Kurt Warner talent-wise. Nowhere near. So we got to stop with that. So rant over, but I can't stress it enough. Like, I actually like the guy, and he's a great story, but he's got arm issues pre-existing, and he wants $60+ million a year. This is a no-brainer. You do not pay him that money. If he can't go down from that number, down half of that number, you move on. There's no, we have to do it anyway. No, if you do it that way, you're asked to be bent over a table for the next 10 years by this friggin' division.
I think the stars align on this in so many different ways. You had mentioned, Jake, there only takes one dumb team to make the move of getting rid of them and getting a decent compensation back in return if necessary, right?
Trent Baalke's the general manager still.
I can name you 2 teams in East Rutherford that share the same building that would probably be willing to do that at some point here in the near future. The league has never been more bottom heavy. The desperation is going to reek this upcoming season. You're going to see it. Kirk Cousins is going to go to a team, right? Either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is going to go to a team. And like you just mentioned with Purdy, he will be making money somewhere, whether it's San Francisco or somewhere else. But to me, all of the examples you've been given, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, you continuously pay money to guys that aren't the aforementioned guys that you just alluded to, and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, right? And Patrick Mahomes. You see what happens. All of those teams have not come close to the expectations they have set for themselves after paying that quarterback. On top of that, you had the exact same example in your own building down to a T with your backup quarterback, Jake. In Jimmy G. You go to a Super Bowl, you lose it. It wasn't good enough. You moved on. You have proven within that organization that you can do it with other guys. To give one guy $60 million, and it just makes me wonder if the Detroit Lions would have held on last year and the Niners do not go to the Super Bowl. It makes you wonder if these conversations are even being had to the extent in which they are. It kind of goes back to a lesser degree of Daniel Jones getting that victory over a 13-win Minnesota Vikings team. Are you even having the conversation of retaining him if he doesn't win that game? That's how much we value very specific games and moments in this league, and it can oftentimes flip an organization over. I think the Niners are one of the more interesting offseason teams out of anybody in the league right now. Cannot wait to see how it all unfolds this offseason. I think in general, fellas, we have a lot to look forward to this offseason in terms of moves and a variety of different
100%.
things.
Ziba, real quick,
Sure.
to your point, I'm not going to take long on this.
No.
You mentioned top heavy or bottom heavy, right? Totally agree with you. Why are there 2 15-win teams? Why is there a 14-win 5 seed? This stuff is unprecedented. I mean, this would be the toughest road anybody's gone through if the Rams were to play the Vikings this week, the Lions or the Eagles, and then the Lions. I mean, there's a reason for that. There's a lot of bad teams in this league. So I agree with you. A lot of bad GMs that are being retained. I still don't know how Trent Baalke has a job. I'm sorry. He must have pictures on somebody.
Well, he doesn't until the next coach says he doesn't like him, according to the owner in an interview yesterday.
He is not a good owner, and he almost owned the Rams. So I thank God every day that Kroenke has him, even though everybody hates him. Guy he funds the operation and then stays out of the way. He lets the professionals handle it. That's why I like him.
Yeah, this league keeps you on your toes. I mean, you got Gerard Mayo fired 20 minutes after a W in a season where no one had a single lick of expectation for the New England Patriots. I don't understand it. Then you have Joe Shane on national television essentially flipping the Giants franchise on its head, and he retains his job. So nothing makes sense to me anymore. I don't quite get it. That's why I think this offseason is going to be as entertaining as I think it's going to be. As we come to the end here, fellas, my favorite time of the show, it is Super Chat time. We're going to start it off with Feed Me More Seahawks. Let's sing the You're Stuck with Kyler Murray song. Speaking of being stuck with quarterbacks, I don't know that tune. Mike, do you know that? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, never heard of it. No, we're 2025. Yeah, but that's going to be a defining year for Kyler. So I'll just leave it at that. I understand that you could be laughing from the outside. I understand he doesn't win big games, but let's see what 2025 holds. That's all I can really say at this very moment.
Can we get
you're stuck
singing
with
Seawalk?
Kyler, like that old dog on the porch.
What do you
I was
think?
going to say we should get the singing with Seawalk.
Oh, my Lord.
You're stuck with him forever.
I was just, every week it seems that we're getting a different song request. I remember when Jake played the 49ers, so he must have had 75 requests to play it again. So, I don't know this Stuck with Kyler song, but maybe someone will write it by the time we join you next and we can sing it before the start of the next season. We got Feed Me More coming back in. Thank God you're back, Z-Bot. Jesse is so boring, bro. Feed Me More. Taking a shot at Jesse any chance he can get. Ruiz coming in. Rams B team equals Seattle starters. Rams return the broom. Brandon, that's got to piss you off more than anything this past week. Just probably seeing that all over the internet, how the Rams hung with the Seahawks with their backups. I would imagine that's got to be pissing you off.
I mean, it does, but there's also the debate at hand right now that I'm having within our own fan base, in my chat, my people, and so many, bristling at the thought process of the fact that we might need to take a little bit more time on setting the groundwork on this rather than hitting the injector button. And to me, this was a little bit of an evidence of confirming more of what we saw throughout the year. You just talked about one game holding in people's minds. And I think that that's true. It's the fullness of the season. But if there's a theme from all of the year that carries forward, that's probably where you really are, no matter how optimistic or how much you think the glass is actually half full.
Right. You got Feed Me More coming in again. He is on a tear. He says the Rams have more to play for than the Seahawks. Well, I would have to agree. They are playing in the playoffs. The Seahawks are not. So Feed Me More. That's a solid point you're making there.
I get what he was saying, though. He was saying the Rams had more to play for in Week 18 than Seattle did.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I have a buddy. I think I've told you, Jake. He's such a Rams fan that his nickname amongst us is Ram. That's all we call him. And we were talking with him all week. Like, what's the story here? But I think you summarized it very well. This is a banged up team that, let's be honest, as banged up as they were, I don't know if anyone could have anticipated them winning this division a couple of months ago in the state that they were in. So to give them a week off, I understand it. And I also think it says a lot about McVay. He doesn't give a rat's ass, right? They're going to be ready to rock against anybody.
Well, also, and I want to touch on this real quick, is that I think what that game showed was the depth, because the Seahawks had their depth challenge early on with the corners going down. And the Rams' depth, I've said all year, like, people act like they don't have any depth on this roster. I actually disagree. I challenge that. I think they have a lot of depth, and I think they showed it.
No doubt about it. I think that's one of the more intriguing games of the weekend, because I think in that game, I truly think Sam Darnold's playing for an X amount of money. I think if he wins that game, I think the money on the table going into that Lions game has been significantly decreased based on the outcome of it. I think he can get money back on the table with how he plays Monday, or I think it could be gone based on how he plays on Monday. Very interesting. It's back to what we were just talking about. Brandon mentioned it again. These sample sizes, right? Sam Darnold has a great year. You don't perform to get the 1 seed. You don't perform in the wild card, and all of a sudden that's completely gone. So a lot on the line Monday night, I think even beyond just the playoff game. We have my man Jesse coming in. He might not be with us on the show, but he's with us in the chat. And Jesse is saying, show is way better without Jesse.
Oh, yeah, get your back there, man.
Are you trying to say something? What are you telling us?
This is soft exit, Jesse. I've had a girlfriend do this before to me. I've been down this road here.
Yeah.
No, I just can't be there this week.
Yeah. Better off without me anyways. You don't need me, right? It's not you, it's me.
Little do we know he's on another show right now.
Yeah,
I know.
Another roundtable.
Yeah.
Do say Falco. If Rams offense shows up, they win Monday. I mean, I like the Rams money. Like I said, we're going to save it for our preview episode coming up your way later in this week. But I can't get that taste out of my mouth out of what I saw from Minnesota the other night. That was I cannot buy. And to think I thought Minnesota was winning that game going into it. I
did too.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, half the Lions are in the infirmary.
Nah, you guys come on. I guess I'm on the Lions Kool-Aid. That's probably what it is.
Well, I'll tell you this: the Lions defense plays like they did the other night. Look out! I mean, look out, because that's what, of course, has been the problem with the injuries over the last month here. But that pass rush looked like it was. I mean, it was elite. Sam Darnold, he looked like
seen ghost,
like rookie year New York Jet. Yeah, he looked like mononucleosis. Sam Darnold.
Oh my God, he brought it up.
Yeah,
he brought it back.
Hank Woodmore, no concern. And Jake, stop it. I think it's back to talking about what we were talking about with Stafford and this offense, Jake.
Yeah, I'm not concerned because they found, I think having them play unconventionally, like last year, a lot of people forget, they were an explosive offense down the stretch. This year, they didn't have that explosive offense that you were expecting. They're also, not fully healthy until they only had 2.5 games, like I mentioned. So I just think that I'm not really concerned because they've learned how to win these games. I'll tell you in the past, even the Super Bowl season, guys, they were not winning that Cardinals game. They would have lost that. We watched plenty of games where they lost that type of game. They would not won the Jets game, and they would have lost to the 49ers. And they won all 3 this year. Those were the type of games that the Rams always lost. So it tells me it's a maturation of Sean McVay, who's obviously gotten older, still very young. And it just tells me that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I don't care how corny that saying is. It's so true. And it didn't kill them. They found a way to win those games. Doesn't matter how ugly it is. Clean slate. Everybody has 0 points for, and everyone has 0 points against.
We got the goalpost continuing to move here, Jake, on your Rams. Feed Me More is saying, Jake, your run defense can't get past the Eagles. So I think we already got a penciled-in W over the Vikings here, if I'm reading into Feed Me More, his super chat here.
Well, I will tell you this right now. I said there's one team I did not want to see was the Philadelphia Eagles because they didn't want to go to Philly. And then I talked to Whitworth yesterday, and now he's got me actually wanting to play Philly in the second round. And the reason being, in the past, going to what I was saying earlier, explosive team playing on that turf, there's a little bit of a boost. But this team is made to grind out games. We didn't expect it to. This isn't your Super Bowl Rams. This is a team that will run the ball with Kyron Williams 29 times and not care. And that's a team that's made for the cold, and that's a team that's made, for on the grass. And to his point, and I actually really agree with it now, because at first I was like, and then I heard him out. Why do you want Saquon playing indoors? Saquon on grass is not as explosive as Saquon at SoFi Stadium. I watched him at SoFi Stadium. That is the most explosive performance I've ever seen from anybody in any sport. That was ridiculous.
Yeah. And it also goes back to those type of games where you get rolled, and McVay ain't going to get rolled like that again, right?
No.
You can't imagine it. So it'll be interesting.
He might, but I'll never say no. But yeah, you'd be a little surprised. I mean, if they got rolled, it would be somebody had to go down significant, and they just. But even still, what the guts they showed in that first game against the Lions, how young they were, how unproven they were, 4th string left tackle, Puka's out in the first quarter. It would have to be Stafford to go down for them to get absolutely rolled, in my opinion.
Cryptic coming in, but isn't it on McVay with a triple crown wide receiver, star in Puka, and versatile running back that they are not high octane? We see glimpses against the Bills. It's like KS with all these all pros and can't average 25 points a game. But as you alluded to, that triple crown winner in wide receiver there is just not what it was anymore.
Yeah. I mean, against the Lions, they're going to put Amik Robertson on him, and that is not going to be if they play, the Lions, Amik Robertson will just absolutely be all over Kupp. The Kupp is actually a guy that you need to use over the top now because he actually still has that straight line speed. He's never been wicked fast, but you've seen it. When he's asked to make those quick cuts and be that, third and Kupp, he's not third and Kupp anymore. Right. I mean, maybe we get, playoff Stanton type. If you guys know, the Yankees, Giancarlo Stanton, who looks decrepit, and then in the postseason he hits home run after home run. If we get something like that, where Cooper Kupp is just like, all right, I'm nearing the end of my rope here. Let me just go out with a bang. Then watch out. But I haven't. We've seen 100-yard games and such. We saw a good game against the Bills. You haven't seen Triple Crown Cooper Kupp at all this year.
I think a recent example, it could be as easy as last year in Travis Kelce. Where is he? No one knows where he is. Postseason rolls around. Oh, there he is. I remember that guy, right? I know too well, and I think everybody does. So you never know. When it gets to this stage of the year, man, it's you got to throw everything out. For all we know, Cooper Kupp could be back to the top dog like we've seen him as in the past. And if not for anything else, Jake, the guys you have on that team, when Cooper Kupp's out there, you still have to respect him. That opens up other things too. And I'm sure these Rams will find a way to take advantage of it. We have Freddie coming in. He's saying happy new 2025 to the fellas. Go Rams. Happy new year to you as well, Freddie. I will make an exception on Larry David's rule. Even though it is the 7th, we will wish everyone here once again a happy new year, despite the fact that we're 4 days past the cutoff time, according to Larry David. January 3rd is the last day you can say it, according to the legend Larry David. AJV, Rams legend Jimmy G. I got to tell you, man, Jimmy G looked nice the other day.
Good.
I'll tell you, a couple of these guys, Joe Milton against my Bills, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? A couple of these guys.
Oh, I knew he was.
You know what I mean? Crazy.
Rams fans been trying to trade for him all year, and I'm like, what? Why? And then all of a sudden he does that. Now I'm getting that set to be like force fed to me in my DMs.
Yeah.
One play doesn't define a quarterback, but I did think, to his point, I mean, Jimmy G played really well, and he was asked to, Dylan McMahon had not played center all year. He was a 5th-round pick by the Eagles. The Rams have just kind of kept around, has not even played, and he was at center. Avila struggled because he was next to him. Nopum was at left tackle. You had Jonah Jackson at right guard, and you had Warren McClendon Jr. at right tackle. But for the most part, like, a lot of pressure. I have a lot of respect for what Seattle does and the pressure they bring, and Leonard Williams and all those guys. And I thought Jimmy showed a lot of poise in the pocket. Looked really good, obviously in the play action passing game, going back to what he did with the 49ers. Well, and like their run game, while, Ronnie Rivers had some good runs, they didn't have like a dominant run game either. So he kind of had to carry them in that game. And I thought he did a really nice job.
We do have some breaking news here within the division. The 49ers will not retain defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen. So we know that this year was definitely a down year for the defense of the San Francisco 49ers. Jesse was pounding the table on that all year. We do know that, the age was kind of getting to him a bit there. The injuries were kind of getting to him a bit there. But there will be at least one change for San Francisco, and that will be at the D coordinator position. Nick Sorensen out as the D coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. We have concierge with Nolan. Rams needing the 5th tiebreaker to win the NFC but going to win the Super Bowl. In all seriousness, thank you all for a fun year. Go Hawks. We've seen crazier, Jake. I'll just say that.
I mean, the Rams were the 4th seed when they won the Super Bowl, and they started their run beating the Cardinals on Super Wild Card Weekend, Monday Night Football. Sorry, I had to bring up the Monday night game because it's relevant. They don't have that. The one time they did, that team went to the Super Bowl. Now they're doing it again.
We appreciate you, Nolan, and we have had a fun year with you as well, and all of you guys. It's been an absolute blast. Especially
Mike wants to kill me.
Just don't remind me of that damn game. That's all.
There was way too much like daggers being just...
right. Laser beams.
Fellas, we have an absolute banger coming in from
Megan.
Megan.
Greetings, all.
So
just home from lunch and drinks for my mother's birthday. Well, how about it, Megan? It's my mother's birthday today as well. So how about that? You're across the pond and our mothers share a birthday. I hope you had a terrific afternoon with your mother. You're saying a few days later, not sure how I feel after the Hawks season, even though I did call 9 to 10 wins at the start of the year. So there's that. And Grubb is gone. Onward and upward to all. I don't know what your preseason prediction was, Brandon. Was it around what ended up finishing?
No, it's perfect. I landed it. My prediction was this: if it was going to be 10 wins. If you had less than half a season of Abraham Lucas, that was how big a key he was coming back to the fold. You had less. If you got to more than half a season, I said 11 wins. It was less than half a season, and you ended up exactly at 10 wins. So I knocked it out the park on that one.
Yeah, it just sucks with the 17th game, 10 wins now. It's the new 9. It just always felt like 10
Good
wins.
stuff, Brandon.
Right. Yeah.
First team in modern NFL history to have back-to-back winning seasons and not get into the playoffs.
Wow, there's a stat. Did not know that.
Hey, we
Six
have like
teams
opposite
this year
stats.
with 10 wins, and we're the only team not to get in.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry, Brandon. Hey, if it makes you feel any better, I wanted another NFC West team for our show because I care about our show's health and I don't want our viewership to go down. I don't know if it will. I think if people tune out, then they don't know what they're missing. They can't listen to this guy, his golden voice hosting the show. I mean, I just tune in to just...
The Bills keep rolling. We can come on here and talk all you guys want. It's up to you guys. If that happens. We can totally do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just listen to Z-Bot talk all day and just sit there. I mean,
you guys can sit there and we can talk all we want. I mean, we can talk. We can talk till we're blue in the face if they keep going. I got to tell you, though, I'm nervous as all hell about these.
Why are you so nervous?
I think it's just because it's the playoffs. I had said earlier they could be playing Bishop Sycamore, and I'd be sick to my stomach right now getting ready to play this game. But I think Bo Nix is something, man. I think Sean
is good.
Have these guys ready, and I think above anything, the 9-point spread, which we'll talk about later on the prediction show coming your way. That's a lot to me. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see what version of Denver shows up, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Bro Montana, PC Sorensen and special teams coordinator Schneider both fired already. So there was also a move at special teams coordinator as well for the Niners.
How many defensive coordinators is that scapegoated now?
It's a yearly event.
I mean, they go to the Super Bowl. It's like, yeah, definitely this guy's the reason. Like, I've never seen anything like this. Man. I think they've fired a defensive coordinator every single year Shanahan's been there.
You know what I love is Jake Moody can't kick the ball, so let's fire the special teams coordinator. Like, I just never understood some of the mindset behind these folks. Kills me. Jake Moore, coming on to inform Mike, still has the most aura.
Appreciate it.
When you say aura, you got to include the two emojis, the two star emojis. That's how I hear aura. I hear aura with those two little emojis next to it. That's kind of a zesty word to me. Aura.
You hear emojis?
I can hear emojis.
You ever get that checked out?
You ever see when they put the little stars next to the emoji and it kind of gives it that little flare? That's kind of how I see aura. And Mike's got that aura, no doubt about it. Good point, Jake.
Appreciate it.
Glad you're continuously letting us know that Mike's got the most aura on the show. And even if Jesse was on the show, I got a feeling Jake would also say Mike's still got the most aura.
Absolutely.
He does. I also wasn't wearing the cardigan, the shades, and all that. You know, I toned it down.
I was going to say, not a fair deck. Not a fair deck with Jake wearing the turtleneck. Not a fair deck. And you don't have the chain on either. So,
I do, but I had to, you know.
You're keeping it subtle. You're being
today.
Rams beat the Vikings. I got a feeling that chain's popping out next week. No question about it. I got a feeling.
It might.
Yeah.
I mean, I wear a turtleneck every day. I got kind of tired of it. I mean, I'll still probably go back to it, but yeah, I don't know.
You got to rock the turtleneck if the Rams win. There's no doubt about it.
All right. Well, I guess now I'm the turtleneck guy. I am, because Rams fans keep freaking, I mean, nothing against them, obviously. It's hilarious. They keep photoshopping me as Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Well, yeah, I think of two things when I think of turtleneck. That meme and then SpongeBob. One with the collar.
Oh my
turtleneck. That's the only two things I ever think of with a turtleneck. I don't own one, but whenever I see you wear one, I'm like, you know what? I wish I
need to get one.
I wish I did have one or two of those.
You could rock it. Can you do it? How about you rock the turtleneck? How about we do this? Since we did the victory shades, let's do the victory turtleneck with the chain.
Ooh.
You and I.
You buy a chain now?
I was just gonna say, Jake, I gotta buy a chain now. I kind of hope the Bills kind of let me down a little bit. I don't know if I got much for the chain.
Just one of the fake golds, man. They all like the same.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to get like a $300 one. I mean, I like the $300 one.
Maybe we bust out like they do online with the diamond tester. We got to make sure it's authentic right here on the show before we do it. We'll see.
All right.
But I feel like when I think of Christmas time, turtleneck, man. I don't know if you can go wrong with a turtleneck. I think it's killer. Josh is saying, Cards fan here, rooting for Niners to pay Purdy and watch all their talent walk away. Interested to see what happens to the Rams this offseason. Is this their last rodeo with Stafford? When you hear that, Jake, what comes to mind? Because I feel like we've heard this throughout the year here. Whenever he has a down game, I feel like this is exactly where everybody goes to.
Yeah, he's coming back. I mean, as long as he doesn't have a career-ending injury, God forbid, in the postseason, I would expect a 3-year deal, 2 years with a third year kind of opt-in. And the reason being is because if he decides to retire, it's, kind of structured in a way that doesn't hurt them cap-wise. Like, I'm not going to mention his name, but AD, $25 million against the cap. I mean, just for retiring, it's $25 million. You couldn't spend on another guy. So, yeah, like that's how I see it. I think it'll be a 2-year deal, 3rd year opt-in. If he chooses to go 3 years, there you go. I don't expect him to draft a quarterback this year. I don't. I think that they'll probably either bring back Jimmy Garoppolo, who they really like. Even before this game, I kept hearing it, and I was like, I don't know why. And then I saw this game, and I was like, all right, I'll shut up. But they're either going to bring back Garoppolo as the backup, or I could see them going out and getting like Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones type to just develop behind Stafford. And then, at whatever point they decide to draft a guy, which I think they would, that would be the case. I do know that this organization really likes Sam Darnold. So if God forbid Stafford left, I think they would be interested. But yeah, that's all I know.
I can't wait for the 2026 episode where we're all sitting here and Jimmy G's getting set to face Brock Purdy and the Niners in the NFC Championship. The conversations that we're going to be having here. I can't wait.
Man,
that would be awesome, wouldn't it? Jimmy G to play Kyle Shanahan. I would pay money to watch the chat here.
I would just want to watch his brother after the game. I mean, would he go on the sidelines and literally flip off Kyle? I mean, it's like, I know Jimmy. I don't know if you guys know the context behind it, but Jimmy G's brother was like, "Ha, loser!" Like. On Instagram. Jesse, courtesy of Jesse, he brought it up. But yeah, on Instagram, he took a picture of Kyle at the game. It was just like loser.
And then maybe the Rams can draft Trey Lance's brother out of North Dakota State there, and you can have Jimmy G throwing balls to him against the Niners.
My God.
It'd be a crazy. I was watching the FCS championship, by the way, the other night. That dude, Trey Lance's brother, a wide receiver, he won him the game in that second half. That dude was balling out, man.
How about this, Ebot? What if the Rams, so they lose Chris Shula and they go out and get Nick Sorensen, win a Super Bowl like that? That'd be hilarious. Oh, he's not good enough for you? Okay, he's good enough for us.
Well, I know your boy Kyle Juszczyk isn't making enough money, so maybe the Rams can pay him more, and then you can bring him in.
How the hell? I would not pay him. I do not care about the revenge angle there. I don't know how that guy gets so much money.
Feed Me More coming in again. We appreciate you, Feed Me More, launching them tonight. He says, Jesse, typical Niner fan can't accept defeat. Yeah, no, Jesse only had to accept it 11 times this year, so I think he's had about enough. Jesse said 11 was one too many. You know the old saying, turn it up to 11. Jesse wanted to leave it at 10. And once we cranked it to 11, Jesse said, I had enough. I've had enough. Daniel's coming in. I would be licking my chops if I was a Vikings fan. Oh, is that right? Your thoughts on that, Jake? Licking your chops to play this Rams team. I don't know about that.
I don't know. I mean, your funeral, not mine. I'm just saying that right now. I mean, we know Stafford. We know what he's done in the postseason. And if you think for a second that this team doesn't want to get a crack at the Lions, they know what's at stake. I mean, they have to win this game. I watched Quentin Lake today on the NFL, whatever they had him on. And every single one of those guys, in case you didn't know, saw what Dan Campbell said, see you in 2 weeks. Doesn't matter if he was talking about Cabo or not, which he obviously wasn't. Yeah, everybody saw that. Coaching staff, Les Snead's wife even commented about it. Yeah. This is the season where I'm not putting anything out there to get anybody more motivated than they already are to play in a playoff game. That's just me.
Plenty more to talk about on that topic when we get to our preview episode of the wild card round later on in the week. I cannot wait for it. Ruiz coming in. Rams win the Super Bowl because Jimmy G is on the bench.
Is he in the bench?
He's in the bench. He is the bench.
I don't know what that means. But
he's got the aura.
Love Ruiz.
I'm one with the bench.
Feed Me More, capping us off. Last roundtable, we talked about Jesse's OnlyFans. Glad you're back.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you that.
What did I miss?
Yeah.
Now we know why Jesse's not here, by the way.
Right.
He's already found the lucrative nature of it, and he's deep into it. No pun intended.
Some dude was like, yeah, Jesse, you're really handsome. No Diddy. Like,
I got
you got a taste of that OnlyFans money. He said, Roundtable, who? He goes, I don't know those guys. We're making bags over here on OF. All right, fellas. Hey, listen, if I was making the bag on OF, look at, I don't know if you'd be seeing much. Maybe I'd come on here and do some free plugs. I don't know. We will see. I don't think I'm going to get down that road anytime soon. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here. Buck 25 in the books on the NFC West Roundtable. A lot more to talk about tonight, fellas, and I thought we would have. And you want to know what? Is that not conducive to the NFC West Roundtable? I said to you prior to the show, if we don't hit an hour, that's fine. Week 18 was a little bit of a dud. We're at a buck 25 right now. So I think that is incredible. I appreciate all you guys.
And one more dono.
Ruiz. And he's got more to say about Jimmy G, because of course he does. Jimmy G's Super Bowl rings, he was on the bench. Oh, that's true. That's
true. Galaxy brain thinking from Ruiz.
Wow.
There we go.
I like it.
A little bit of lore there for the Jimmy G bench.
The secret sauce.
Yeah. Jimmy G on the bench, and you are set up for success. All right. Yeah. Hour 25 in the books, as I was mentioning. We appreciate every single one of you tuning in. The audience tonight was terrific, seeing that you have 3 teams eliminated. Week 18 wasn't all that exciting. The fact that you decided to spend your evening with us is not overlooked by any of us. We truly appreciate it, and we would love to have you in our wild card preview episode later in the week. That's where we're going to be picking every single game in the wild card, folks. It's here. It's one and done. We cannot wait to dive into that. So we hope you join us for that episode coming your way later in the week. On your way out the door, like button if you could, subscribe button if you could as well. And as I filibuster a little bit here, I wanted to go back and remind you that the lines are up for the wild card round on BetUS. And as we talked about at the top of the show, the Minnesota Vikings, the 14-win Minnesota Vikings, who could have had the 1 seed not even 3 days ago, are a 1-point favorite against the LA Rams on Monday Night Football. You can get in on that game and all of the wild card round games on BetUS using the promo code YouTube150. That'll get you a 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next 2 after that. All right, fellas, for Jake, Brandon, Mike, and Jesse, who could not be with us this evening, I'm your host, Z-Bot. Thanks so much for tuning in to the NFC West Roundtable, and we'll see you on the next one.
Go Cards.
Go Hawks.